The Pesky Report is sponsored by High and Happy Catering out of Springfield, Massachusetts. Their chef, Michael Best, can cook anything you want with or without being infused with cannabis. Check out some of what they make on their Instagram at High and Happy Catering or call them at 413-785-8999. You'll be happy you did.
Welcome to the Pesky Report, a podcast for Red Sox fans.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pesky Report. This is episode 154, in which our favorite photographer, writer for Mass Live returns to us. It's Katie Morrison. And it's literally just me and Katie today. I thought Timmy was going to be here, but he's apparently getting drunk and watching the Home Run Derby, and I get it. I really do get it. How are you doing, Katie?
Yeah, that doesn't sound bad. Maybe those are the plans after this, but I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. It's the All-Star break. The boys have been gone for a week. I've had some time off. I'm feeling good, recharged. Doing well.
So you're at every Woo Sox game, correct?
Every home game. I'm off the hook on the road. I'm just I say just, but I'm a freelancer, so I'm not full-time at Mass Live. So I do a lot of other stuff, while they're away, mostly photography stuff. Every home game, I do get sometimes a day off a week, but I try to be at every one.
Oh, that seems like a good setup. Now now you do photography and you do journalism. Where did you go to school for both of those things?
Basically went to school for neither. Well, I did do communications. I went to Northeastern. I majored in communications, and I kind of went to Northeastern because I had my eye on an internship, and that was Joe Castiglione's internship, and I got that. I was the youngest intern that he ever had at that point, probably still. I got it when I was a sophomore, and I spent like 2 years being his actual intern, so I was at every home game for the Red Sox in 2012 and 2013. Those are very different seasons. And then I did some writing in 2014, like my last year of college. And so I did what I came, saw, and conquered at Northeastern. I spent a lot of time at Fenway Park.
I mean, that's what you hear a lot for Northeastern. People aren't going so much for the school as the internship and that work extension program they have towards the end of it. But so I didn't know that you worked for Castiglione. What was that experience like?
It was awesome. It was a dream come true, honestly. It was amazing. Joe is exactly like you would expect him to be off the air. He's a sweetheart. He was like my grandpa during those years, just because he cares so much about everybody. And I really, really love Joe. And I learned a lot. I got to learn a whole lot. That was when I was working for EEI. That was who I was employed by. But I really just did stuff at Fenway, but I got to learn pretty much everything I know, or my basis of journalism came from Rob Bradford and Alex Spear, which are two very good guys to learn from. And Alex especially really took me under his wing and really pushed me to I didn't really have to be I wasn't supposed to be a writer as an intern. I would run around, do things that needed to be done, look up stats. My main job was grabbing the post-game guest after a win, things like that. But I I was like, I can do so much more than that. So I started writing, and that was kind of how I started in journalism. And I wasn't even taking photos at that point. And boy, I look back and I'm like, oh, I really wish I had a good camera in 2013. But I didn't start taking pictures till after I left college, and I started working for like a local newspaper where you learn to do everything.
Yeah, that's I'm in graduate school right now for communications, and one thing that they've really emphasized to us is how it's not just doing one thing, it's do everything you possibly can do and just hustle your way into something, because
Mm.
it's it's a competitive field, and just the fact that you were able to get your foot in there and then run with it is I mean, that's sort of like that's like your picture perfect story right there, right? So how when you 2013, do you get a World Series ring for that, or is that just the people directly with the club? Like, do the interns get in on that at all?
Yeah, I that was definitely a question I had. And no, I didn't get a World Series ring, and I'm still a little bitter about it. But what I'm really bitter about was it's kind of funny actually. My fiance, he at the time was the Red Sox radio like executive producer. And so we both were like ready to go. We were like, we're gonna be on the boat, we're gonna go on the parade, we're gonna be on the EI boat. But then all of the like higher ups at EI were like, no, 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 those spots are for us. And
That's
that was a good lesson in how things work. um,
that's kind of a scumbag move. I'm sorry. Let everybody on it, from the intern to the Loomer Loanies or whoever was the big
right?
DEI star at that time.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, I don't even remember if I went to that parade because we were just very mad. We held a grudge. But no, it was I did get to go. I mean, I paid my way, so I'm not gonna give any credit, but I did get to go to St. Louis. And that was really cool. I got to see like that clubhouse, and I have pictures from just on my phone of like wandering around like the roof at night just waiting for my rides to be ready to go. It was really cool. And yeah, that was definitely an experience. And yeah, I'll definitely never forget it, that's for
I
sure.
mean, so wait, you were St. Louis 2013. Because I remember I stayed at a hotel right outside of there in 2013. It was the day Chris Carpenter retired, and I remember just kind
Oh,
of randomly, I did it was like hot wire roulette, and my hotel just happened to be like immediately across the street from Busch Stadium, and it's just it's such a nice venue. I wish I had. I mean, it's not the same, I'm
mhm.
sure, as when there are actual World Series games going on there,
That's crazy. It is.
but
It is a crazy venue. Like the outside, I mean, they have like that place was popping outside. They had a stage set up. It almost looked like like the Deer District in Milwaukee or whatever. They just had a big thing going on out there. That was really cool. I haven't been back to St. Louis since then, but gosh, it's funny that you say that you stayed at a hotel like right outside, because by the time we knew that A, the Red Sox were going to the World Series, and B, who they were playing, I think we stayed like 4 towns outside of St. Louis.
no, I feel like
It
everything there
battle.
must have been rented out just because, I mean, that's a baseball town. St. Louis
Yeah,
really is a baseball town.
for sure. Yeah.
But so you must have known then that you wanted to work in baseball to some extent for a while. When did you start really following the Red Sox?
I would say 2002 was the year, so I was 10. That was when I really started getting into baseball. My first love was Nomar Garcia Parra.
Yep,
Still love
I relate to that.
one of the coolest moments ever at the internship was he was working for ESPN at the time. And so he would come to Fenway, and it was maybe like 3 times a year, maybe a little more. And so I got to know him a little bit. I got selfies with him and stuff like that. And then one time I was just sitting at my desk doing my job, and somebody comes into the booth. I didn't even turn around, and he puts his hands over my eyes and he goes, "Guess who?" And I turn around, it's freaking Nomar
Oh my
Garcia Parra.
god!
I was like, all right, I've peaked. This is the best. This is the best I'm gonna do here. I'm very happy. But no, it was that yeah, he's great. And my all-time favorite player, probably I will follow him forever, is the 61 in my username is because of Bronson Arroyo.
That's another good class. I think we're in the same age group because these are like all of the guys that I was like really high on when I was like 9-10 years old and just really starting to get into baseball. I remember now this is actually it's funny with both Nomar and Bronson. They both got traded. I feel like that's something that happens to a lot of fan favorites if you grew up a Sox fan. Did you find that it kind of gave you a degree of like cynicism towards the way the organization is run?
Tell you what, the Bronson one did. I still talk about that one because I remember specifically I think he had signed a contract with the Red Sox, took a hometown discount, not that he would have made like big money or anything like that, but he loved Boston so much.
Oh yeah.
And then that was during that like kind of weird period where like Theo Epstein was like not in charge, but then he came back and then he traded him almost as soon as he came back, and for Willie Mo Pena of all people, who, you know, he was fine, but he's fine, but you know, it definitely did make me a little cynical. That was like my first kind of like wake up call of like, you know, this is a business too. And you know, I've always been somebody who gets really into prospects too. I don't know if it's just the accessibility of how close they are. I mean, going to Pawtucket, growing up, stuff like that, or just being closer to my age at that time. But I would always get attached to prospects, and then when they get shipped out, it was some heartbreak, you know. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's unfortunately always a part of the game, and I feel like it's always when you get a little closer to it, like you are obviously now getting to know some of these players a little more on a little more day-to-day basis. That's got to be tough when you're hearing like people say like, "Oh, we no big deal if we trade this guy," and then you've just been watching them play for like the whole year. It's like, no, they're really good. They're going to be a really good player.
It really is weird. I feel like my first I had this experience when I was an intern that I think broke me, and I was like, I'm not getting attached anymore. I was Uke was one of my favorite players growing up. You know, I just so much about him. I just loved Uke, still do. And the day that he got traded, I mean, I had to be like in the clubhouse covering all of it, in on like the scrums, you know, doing a professional job. But he's also like running off the field, tipping his cap to the fans
right after that triple.
Yes, right, exactly. And so these two sides of me are like, I have to be a professional, but I was so upset. And so I give credit to my poor fiance, Pat. He was in the booth at that time, and I was like trying not to cry. I hope he doesn't listen to this because he'll be like, you were crying. But trying to be a professional, and he's like, it's okay, pull it together, you can do it. And it was so bad. And it was like after that, you have to have like a level of, it's a really like weird line to walk where you have to have a relationship with these guys in order to, you know, cover them every day and to get stories and whatnot. But they just can be gone like that. I mean, Marcus Wilson last year, he remains one of our favorites. When I say our, it's usually I'm talking about our group of photographers. It's me and all the Woo Sox photographers, but we're all like young women, and it's great. But we love Marcus. He was just like one of the guys who would acknowledge you, who would come over and say like, hey, how's your day going? What's up? And his wife is awesome. And when he got traded, I mean, it was traded. I couldn't remember if it was.
I think he was DFA'd and Seattle
He was
picked him up.
DFA'd and then it picked him up, right?
Yeah,
that's how it happened. Yep, you're right. And it was just like so weird to come, you know, back to the park whenever the next day or next series or whatever it was, and you just feel like, oh, my buddy's not here anymore, and it's definitely strange. I remember last year, all of the guys were really upset the day that Jet Bandy like got released. You know, he's not a prospect, older guy, but the team just loved him, you know, and it was so somber after that. It's a tough business for sure.
Yeah. And veteran leadership, it doesn't matter if you're, you know, if you're 25 or 35, like you're still on that team. The younger guys that are coming up are going to learn from somebody. And
Exactly.
it's, yeah, no, I mean, if they're a real team, of course they're going to be upset. You know, of course they're going to miss the guys that they've been in the trenches with all season. But yeah, no, Wilson, I was so happy to see he got called up earlier this year too for Seattle. Like that must have been so. What a good moment for him.
Seriously, yeah. I you know, I've definitely seen he's one of those guys where I'm like, oh, come on, like he fits somewhere. You know, he's got to fit in some lineup or, you know, some bench spot, whatever. It's just got to be the, you know, it's just a matter of finding the right spot. There are a lot of guys that you end up feeling that way about for sure.
There's just so much talent, and just getting that up. It's so much of it's just luck. Who gets to play for 10 years and who gets, you know, like a cup of coffee, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got so I've just noticed, and we were talking about this a little bit in the before we started, but you've had some really good scoops lately, just on the old Twitter. And I noticed with Chris Sale versus the television set, you really were answering a lot of questions that came up with that. So I was just wondering a couple of things. A, how is Chris Sale? Because people like, okay, just for instance, I was in Maine this weekend with my girlfriend's family, and that was something that my girlfriend's dad asked me. Was like, yeah, no, that was all over the news what he did to that TV. I mean, did he pay for that? All of this stuff, like that was pretty crazy, huh? Like, how's that for you at like the AAA level? And like something happens there, and suddenly like this is all over the news, and you're getting all of these new follows on Twitter. You're getting retweeted left and right. Like, what's that day like? Take me through that for you. The Chris Sale rehab start #2.
You know, I think I was fortunate to have Chris Sale Day, you know, version 1 last year, so
Yeah.
helped me know what to expect a little bit. It actually went so much smoother this time. It was just like, yeah, we were ready. But yeah, so I tried to you know, I'm always trying to make like Instagram content. I hate making Instagram content, but I was trying to make like a reel of like, you know, come through Sale Day with me or cover Chris Sale Day with me, and it didn't really work out. But I'll take you through it. It's, first of all, usually for that was like a Wednesday night besides. So like a Wednesday night, it's gonna be like me and Joe McDonald from the Telegram. And that's it. And we work really well together. We've got our rapport. We know when things are happening. And then all of a sudden, for Chris Sale Day, there are, 20 people there. All these cameras, you know, people from Boston, whatever. So first thing that's like different is like usually we just go into the clubhouse and we talk to the manager, Chad Tracy, and it's usually just like low key, you know, quick. This time we had to do it in the dugout, and we saw the perils of that because an errant ball almost killed Dan Roach. So that was fun.
I love Dan. Yeah, we're into like the same like weird baseball simulation stuff. So like we follow each other on Twitter like even before like I started doing this stuff, and it's just like very funny. Like oh yeah, that's the guy from WBZ, and he's just this really sweet big old nerd, you know.
100%. That's exactly it. And so yeah, it's definitely it's crazy. So then like before the game, you know, when he's warming up in the bullpen, usually I'm the only one who's like photographing guys in the bullpen just because it's like a really good shot. But you know, everybody's in there, get their cameras up over the edge, and it's just so wild. I mean, the park is packed full. The funny thing about Sale is, well, I could tell that he wasn't going to be happy after that start. I mean, he walked 5 guys. Of course, he's not going to be happy,
Right.
But you know, he's so emotional out there. You know, I have some good photos of him just like with his glove and stuff, and just like really frustrated. And it's funny because right after he came out, we could hear rumors, or there were just, little rumors about how he wasn't happy, or he could hear him throwing stuff or whatever. So we had no idea what happened, like right after, right?
Right.
And actually, even when we talked to him, which is why nobody asked him about it, we had no idea what happened. And he's so funny because even though he was that pissed, like, 20 minutes later, he is very even keeled, and he doesn't like snap at people when you ask him questions. Actually, he's one of my favorite guys to interview. I don't know if I read into this too much, but I haven't put it. I'm gonna say it. Like, I feel like Chris Sale in the I think I've interviewed him 3 times, and each time he's like gone out of his way to like make sure that like women get to ask questions and don't get drowned out by like guys yelling, because guys can be so loud, and especially TV guys, they have to be. And he kind of like stops everything. He's like, "You back there," and I appreciate that. And he was very chill after the game. We got him talking about the post-game spread, and it was like nothing had ever happened. That man, I honestly do not want to hear Chris Sale talk about food. I do not want to look at that skinny man talk about how much food he is putting away and never gains a pound.
I remember him talking about like his rehab, that he was like, "Yeah, no, and I'm not just eating McDonald's anymore," because I guess that was his like post game thing, was just that he'd get McDonald's or before pregame or something like that, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm eating healthy now," and it's like, you weren't before. Like,
he's so skinny. I mean, obviously he knows this, so I don't, it won't be offensive for me to call him skinny, but he's a lanky dude,
yeah.
and I think he can put it away though. I think it's always the boys eat well when Chris Sale is in town. That's for sure.
Yeah, what was the spread? What was the spread for that? Because I heard that he spent like $6,000 or something like that feeding everybody at the
Oh my god! Well, a little bit.
stadium.
Here's some inside info. This place in Worcester lost out big time. It was a shawarma palace. That's where they went last time, and it was a day game. And he was all psyched to like do that again. He's like, "Oh, it's so good." And they closed at 4, and so they, yeah. And I'm like, y'all missed out on a really big bill. So I don't actually remember where they got it from. I can't remember. I not because Eovaldi's his spread was the most recent one in my head. Too many to keep track of. It was a busy week. It was a very busy week down there. The guys were very well fed last week. Or 2 weeks ago at this point. That's for sure.
Yeah, there were a bunch of guys rehabbing at once there, because there was Sale, obviously, but Eovaldi, Whitlock, Kike Hernandez, Josh Taylor's been kind of bouncing between AA and AAA for like at least over a month now. And I heard he actually got pulled from his assignment recently, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on with him. But is it a different atmosphere when you have a guy from the big league club that's rehabbing? Like, not even just people showing up at the stadium, because there's always, that's always a big draw. I remember I grew up about 20 minutes away from where the Lowell Spinners played, and RIP. And whatever, I remember seeing Ramon Martinez rehab there when I was a kid, and it being sold out. And the only time you ever saw LeLature get sold out was when there was a guy rehabbing. Bobby Keavy, I saw hit a home run there. Like guys like that, you would always see a lot more people show up. But internally, do they handle things very differently? Because you were even talking about with how they did, like you guys were in the dugout. Like, what would be the biggest difference for somebody, like not even Sale caliber, but like your Eovaldis and your Whitlocks?
You know what's so funny is that everything is so different for Sale and not that way for everybody else. I was shocked that, like, I mean, I know Valdi hadn't been out for as long as Sale, but I think he's as important, to this team as Sale, of course, if not more so. And it was, me and Rochi and Trade Air from Channel 7, you know, TV guys who have Sunday night sports shows and things like that. And no like Boston writers coming down for that one. You know, like, Kike was supposed to be there that day, but he got pulled off his assignment. It is kind of strange the way that Sale is treated versus everybody else. I was really confused about that. When there are position players here, I swear sometimes you don't even notice. It's really weird. We all the photographers notice because we're so excited to have a new face to take photos of. But even sometimes the fans, I mean, it's a lot different when it's a pitcher, especially a starting pitcher. But for example, I mean, obviously there were other guys there, but a lot of people weren't even talking about Whitlock, you know, and he kind of just pitched some middle innings and was just very quiet. So I think the guys like that though. I think that Worcester has been like a really comfortable place for guys to come and rehab, because there always is a good turnout. You never feel like you're playing in front of 1,000 fans or whatever. And the facilities are just so top notch.
I
And
love that stadium. It is such a beautiful stadium.
Gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I can't complain at all about Polar, except for the windows in the press box don't open, which is
that's gonna get hot at like certain points.
Yeah, that's a story. We won't open up that. That's a if you walk into the press box in any random day, there's a good chance that you'll hear complaining about the windows.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you to check your press box privilege here for a second, because I go there. I do data streaming for this website that like does gambling odds for minor league baseball. I'm not kidding, it's a real thing. But I don't have a press pass for that. So what I end up doing is going out into like the left field grass and hoping that there aren't going to be just a ludicrous amount of children there screaming at me the whole time. So I feel like I could deal with the window not being open if it meant not having to like have my operator on the other end of the phone being like, "Can you move? Can you speak up? I can't hear what you're saying."
That's fair. The berm is not the best working area. Sometimes I go out to the berm like before the game and just to get some writing done until I almost got hit by a home run that I was not paying attention to. And I was like, what am I doing?
Wait a minute. I don't have to be here.
I was just like, I'm going to go lay on the grass. I'm taking the sun. Yeah, no, it's dangerous. Watch out. But
it is nice though. Like it is a gorgeous left field. Like I can't complain about having. It's like I have to be at the ball game a few times a week. It's so terrible, you know.
I mean, honestly, the berm is probably like the spot that is like you can judge by how big the game is by like how little green you can see on the berm. You know, for a Chris Sale day, you look out there and there's just not a single spot. It's wild, but if you go out there on a weekend, especially, like they have the playground, they have like face painters and balloon animals. It's great if you have young kids. If you're trying to get work done, maybe
maybe not ideal, but yeah. I mean, it seemed like you got to talk to like Eovaldi and those guys a little bit. What is it different with these guys? Because I assume that you hadn't really met them much prior to them coming down there. So is it hard to develop that rapport with somebody that is brand new there?
You know, these guys, the guys like Sale and Eovaldi and trying to think of who else we've talked to while they're down here. I talked to a lot of guys last year. They're just so professional that I think I'm speaking for them, but I think sometimes it can almost be like a relief to go down to AAA and have 3 people asking you questions, and most of those questions are just like, "How are you feeling? You feeling good?" And that is part of why I love the minors too. Is because I get to almost like attack everything from a positive-ish angle, at least.
That is That is something that's very good about the minors. I agree with you. It's much more concerned about like individual player performance rather than the team's on a 6-game losing streak.
Right. I mean, I think there was a point where the Woo Sox lost 10 in a row, and it felt so wildly different than if the Red Sox had lost 10 in a row. But even then, if you were watching like a high school team losing 10 in a row, because there were good things happening during that, and it was easy enough to pick out those things and not have to like get so down. But minors are just weird too. Like the way the roster has changed so frequently. You know what I mean? Like they're lucky to be doing as well as they are doing, I think, for as much fluctuation as they've had. But yeah, no, when major league guys come down, it's funny. When it was sale day, one of my editors called me and he's like, of course, that was also Bayo Day. So they had a lot to handle up there. And he's like, are you okay if I don't send anybody? Can you handle it by yourself? And I was like, listen, this is actually easier than a regular day because the stories almost write themselves, like the guys just they know what they have to do. Like Evaldi was so good, poor Evaldi. I think he talked to us, me, Rochi and Trade Air as a group, and then he did an individual with Rochi for his channel, and then he did an individual with Trade Air for his channel, and he didn't complain about it.
Good for him. Like,
yeah,
seriously,
I respect the hell out of that. That's I was like, yeah, I felt good because I was probably the least annoying of the bunch, but or needed the least, I should say. But yeah.
I mean, do you ever? Oh, sorry.
No, please.
Do you ever feel like awkward asking people for interviews and that kind of thing?
Yeah. I am a shy. Well, once I get going on stuff, I'm not shy. But like when I have to approach people, it's still something that's like a learning experience almost. It especially like I'm kind of a like private person and having to ask these guys about can you imagine if like you messed up something at work and then somebody's like, hey, tell me about it. And then or even just like asking like personal things. Sometimes I'm never sure how far to go or how deep to pry or to especially as a beat writer and not just somebody who's coming in to get a story and then leaving. I used to kind of do that in the minors, where I'd pop in for a day and get a story and then you'd leave and then you're like, okay, well, they won't think about me anymore. But like having to be there every day, and you definitely are conscious of how much you're asking of these guys, how uncomfortable some of them can be. And it definitely, it can be weird. Strangely, I have a lot less reservations sticking my giant camera in people's faces. When it comes to asking for interviews, it's still a work in progress.
Well, it's because you don't have to talk. You can be just like, we don't have to actually communicate. Just let me take your picture. It's done in a second. It's a little less, less intimate.
Yeah, it is. And now I have like a giant lens, like, so I can really, I'm like a private investigator. I can be really far away from you.
Who's been your favorite player to take pictures of, or like a few of your favorites?
Good question. I would say Jarren Duran was probably one of them.
I mean, he's like a model that just happens to play baseball also. So
he's not a bad looking guy there. But he also is just, I feel like as photographers, we are always like so desperate for the guys to get silly. Yeah. And he definitely has a personality where and especially this year, we talked about it like a little bit before he went up. He was just having a lot more fun this year. And, it's just fun to see him interact with the guys. Another guy on that note is Grant Williams. That kid is just, clubhouse gold. He's like the ultimate clubhouse guy. Even when he's not getting in the lineup or whatever, he's just like always has his spirits up. I have so many pictures of Grant embracing his teammates and like holding them for longer than they expect, so then they like and push him away. I'm like compiling all of them into a post to embarrass poor Grant.
That makes me really happy. I feel like if you're just because whenever I post any kind of content about Grant Williams, it's like, oh, isn't he a basketball player? And it's like, okay, you have to have a sense of humor to be able to deal with that. And there's also like, I feel like there's always a guy like that on the AAA team. Like I remember Chad De La Guerra kind of seemed like he had that persona. You know, there's always somebody. It's usually an infielder.
Yeah. I mean, they're like glue guys almost, you know. I mean, yeah, like I think that Jet Bandy was kind of that way. I mean, he was a catcher, but I mean, he's always, you know, in the mix of everything. Yeah, and I think Jaren was a little bit that way too. He's you know, just always getting into something, you know. I remember one time last year is like you come to the park and it's like, oh, Jaren found a megaphone. Oh, great, what's he gonna do with that?
What did he do with it?
He just yelled at his teammates during batting practice the whole time. Just provided commentary until people stopped paying attention, I'm pretty sure.
We had Zach Kelly on a couple weeks ago, and it really made the bullpen groups just seem like a good group of guys.
Yeah, it is. It is a good group. It is a good group of guys, and they've had some of the same guys down there for a bit. I mean, Zach's great. Zach's one of, you know, he's one of my guys. He's one of those guys who will like I said with Marcus, you know, there are guys who treat you like a normal person. You know, just like, hey, how's it going? Talk to you about normal stuff. And sometimes it can be hard to reach that point with people because there's this weird divide, but Zach has always been that way. And yeah, I mean, with him and Ort, you know, has been here for a while and has been so good. And, you know, Feltman,
Bizarro has been for a few years at this point. Yeah, you kind of see them bouncing around. Like Ort's 30, which is like he got up like very briefly last year, but just seeing him, you know, have like a lockdown inning against the Yankees last week, like it's really awesome because like you don't know if you're ever going to get that shot after a while. You know, 30 years old. Was that one inning that he got in 2021 going to be getting it? You know, now there's talk like, oh, he might not get brought down when people come back because he's done a good job there. And I mean, for you who's followed him this closely for a couple of years, is it kind of like seeing like one of your children like graduate, or like what's that
a little weird. He's right because we're the same age, and I'm like, I still feel like I'm like, oh, he's a kid. But yeah, it does feel like that, you know, in a sense. And he has just been so consistent. I mean, I guess I can't say, I don't know for a fact like how rare it is for a minor league team to just have or a AAA team to have a closer that they can rely on as much as the Blue Sox have relied on Ort. But it was just, I mean, I think Chad Tracy like called him like their safety blanket. It was like, it's just nice knowing that, you know, if you have a lead and you need someone in the ninth, that, you know, you have this closer. And I feel like Ort and Kelly and a number of these guys are at that really tough age, got really kind of screwed a lot by COVID, you know, where they were maybe at that point where they were knocking on the door or getting close to knocking on the door, or, you know, getting up to AAA and on their, you know, regular trajectory. And then they didn't have a place to play in 2020. I remember talking to Ort about how I think he fixed cars or something during 2020. Yeah. You know, it must have been kind of crazy and not knowing what you're going to do. And then to, you know, he had such a good year last year that, you know, it's just once I feel like he's the type of guy that once he's on the roster, like it's going to be tough to like get that spot away from him. You know, he hadn't had that chance. He got called up last year because of like all of the COVID stuff in September. Like, yeah, it was like everybody was getting called up, and now like actually seeing him get a real chance, you know, it's pretty cool. And I mean, it's just like Schreiber, you know, who gosh, it feels like a long time since we've had him, but he was so good for the Woo Sox last year. I mean, he was the eighth inning guy. And neither of them are like young, you know, like young prospects, but it just shows like, especially with relievers, you never know what you have. Or sometimes you do know what you have and you just give them a chance.
That's an argument that I have with a lot of people on Pesky Report, that not a lot of people, specifically Ryan Brady, but he's a very fervent believer that you need to have a closer, and that needs to be like something that you have going into the season. Committee doesn't work. And I agree to an extent with that. I mean, they're just such a volatile bunch, relievers. And, you know, like Schreiber, his fastball went up like 4 miles an hour between seasons. And you mix that in with, you know, that delivery. It's like it's like having Darren O'Day version 2.0 with him. He's been really incredible. And I even remember seeing him last year and thinking like, oh, this is a guy that if he gets an opportunity, he might be able to run with it, because of, like, you know, sometimes you can just tell. It's hard to explain, but you watch the guy enough and you just kind of see like, he gets people out. He makes them look uncomfortable.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been really cool seeing Schreiber and now Orton. Hopefully, I really want to see Zach get called up, maybe Frank German before the end of the season. I'd be pretty happy about that. But with a few of the other guys that have been called up lately, I heard with Jeter Downs that he slept through the call up, and they said, hey, you should probably keep your phone on if you want to go to the majors, or something to that extent. Was there a lot of buzz when that happened?
Oh my gosh, that was the one that I think none of us really anticipated. Let me couch that a little bit. Once we found out kind of what was happening, you know, with his first call up, that it was probably just going to be short term, that it was just kind of needing another body, and then we were like, okay, that makes sense. But it was like it was kind of it was kind of unexpected, to be honest. I mean, you know, Jeter's been, he was here all of 2021, and it was his first year in AAA, and it was a big jump. And I think that he took some time to adjust and, you know, started to show what he could do towards the end of the season. And, you know, this year, I would say that like I was seeing definitely like periods or flashes of like, oh no, this kid's like a really good player when he puts it all together. Or, you know, this kid can like, you know, help the major league team because he really does he's such a well-rounded player. He really can kind of do everything. It's just kind of getting those things to click at once, I suppose. And so when he did get called up, again, I won't speak for him, but just based off some of his quotes, he was not expecting it either.
Right.
And, you know, it was, I really think that experience of calling him up, getting his feet wet, you know, all of that was like such a good idea. And then you end up needing him at this point, and he's already been up there and he's already gotten a little taste. I don't know. I felt like he played different when he came back down. Like it lit a fire under his ass.
I mean, statistically, yeah, even before he got called up for that New York series, like he was just tearing. It was Nico Cavadas, like to reference another player from the system. He just went ballistic for a couple of weeks, got called up, and you know, hit his first home run yesterday, his first double at the major league level. Wasn't really good for any other parties involved with the team, but it was good for Jeet. So that's, you know, and it's hard for me not to root for guys like that, where I can almost imagine that you almost feel like you're just never going to get brought up, like, and you're still not, like, because he basically skipped AA, and that really seemed like the lost 2020 season. It just really seemed to negatively affect him. But
Yeah, it was a really big jump, to skip double A. You learn a lot at that level, and to come up last year, be in a new organization, well, all these new teammates, whatever, and to be facing, major league pitching, like I one of my like hobbies is I will take pictures of anybody I can, any player I can, because I'm always like, you don't know who this guy is going to end up being,
Right.
like
Oh,
Alec,
exactly.
yeah, like Alec Manoah was here maybe like the first series of 2021, and I talked to him and got some great pictures of him and stuff, and he's doing well. I mean, I don't think he's been back down since, and
He's an all-star.
yeah, he's an all-star. I
All-star
mean,
this year.
you never know like who these guys are gonna be, and once you start kind of looking at it, like you face some pretty good pitchers, or guys who were pretty good pitchers and are trying to find their way back. I mean, Tommy Hunter was here with somebody, Brandon Finnegan, who was crazy in that World Series with the Royals. I mean, like, you never know who's going to come through, but like they're talented guys. And to make that jump from high A, where you're not seeing that, and to
No.
do nothing like that. And I think it took some time for him to settle in and catch up to the speed of how things are in Triple A.
Yeah. And the way the fandom is here, there's, I think this regime, the Bloom regime or whatever you want to call it, I think has been very patient with their players, and
Yeah.
I think that sometimes for me where I'm doing stuff on Twitter a decent amount. It's easy to forget that like not everybody is like wants to ship every player to the moon because they've had like a bad month or something, which is certainly a good thing, but. What does get frustrating sometimes, and this is a segue, is when it seems like there's a plan with a player, and then the player gets hurt. And I think
Uh-huh.
that when you look at the Red Sox right now, that Triston Casas injury has just thrown a wrench into everything. And he's been out since I think May 17th.
Yep.
It didn't seem like it was that big of a deal when it happened. He didn't want to leave the game, and he's rehabbing now in the Florida Complex League. But what's the general vibe within Worcester right now with him? Do you know if they're expecting him to come back anytime soon? And what's the adjustment at first baseman like? Because I know Roberto Ramos was with the team, and now he isn't. So it's been kind of Pedro Castellanos, I think, has come in and done a decent job.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah, he has. He has. They've been pretty fortunate to get production from that position with the absence of Casas. But I mean, I won't lie, I did not expect to not have him in the lineup at this point in July. You can only go off of how things seemed like they were. And I mean, I remember we were talking about him kind of in the same breath as like Connor Siebold had like a strain, and that was a long time ago. It feels like he's already had major league stints, and now is back on the IL, unfortunately, which really sucks. But
yeah.
it didn't. I guess that goes to show you like how, first of all, how delicate ankles are. I mean, it's not something to play around with, and he's a big dude.
I was going to say he's an actual giant.
He's a giant. Like, there are not many guys who, even, I'm 5'4" or whatever, there aren't too many guys who I feel like they're like huge next to me, but Costas feels like a giant. He just built, he's built. But it's so delicate, and of course they're going to be as cautious as possible with him. But at this point, I mean, we were asking, Trace for updates on him, and I kind of felt like it almost isn't his thing to worry about right now. It's almost the organization getting updates instead, because it's just been so long, and it didn't feel, at least before the All-Star break, nothing was feeling imminent with him coming back. Hopefully, after this week, we'll be back Friday, and we'll see if we can get an update on Friday. But every time we would ask, it was kind of just anti-gravity running, maybe hitting off the tee, things like that, which is not super encouraging. But, he was, I really wonder, where things would be if he had been healthy this whole time, because I mean, people were clamoring for him to be called up in May, and with two more months of AAA experience, who knows where we would be right now.
I mean, it's my own belief that they thought he was going to be the first baseman by July. Just when you look at how the team construction went down,
right.
Like with Travis Shaw, which just seemed like, again, sure, he's a very nice guy and he's done some great things for the Red Sox organization, but his bat speed was gone in spring training, and but they brought him in as a depth move. I don't think that they expected that they were going to need to be starting Franchi Cordero as their depth, a guy who, I love Franchi, but he's only been playing first base for like a year, so it's a little tough to expect that much from the guy.
Exactly. I was saying that the other night. I'm like, we kind of look at Franchi like he's supposed to be some seasoned first baseman, but he's not.
Yeah.
It was a little over a year ago, and they're just like, hey, want to play first? And he's like, sure, and here we are. So you never know what can happen.
One of the craziest things that I learned about Franchi is that when he was initially signed, he was a shortstop.
Yeah. Can you imagine that frame at shortstop?
Yeah, it's like having a linebacker.
Right. Like he is a solid dude too, and not quite as big as Casas, but he's solid.
It's faster than Casas though.
He does have some speed. He really does, Franchi. He he just is one of those guys where it's very difficult, because like when I see him in AAA, I mean, he's too good for AAA. You know what I mean? And he just beats up those pitchers, and then it's just like, I want to see him maintain that success at the majors, because I feel like he just has so much raw talent, and he's such a hard worker too.
Yeah, and there's been improvement. I think that we've seen a lot of improvement with him, just the way that he lays off pitches that are outside. Now, I remember when he was in the big leagues last year, he was just swinging. It felt like it everything. And then, I'd see him playing in AAA, and he hit a ball like over the big, like whatever that big screen thing in center field is. And it's like, how did he hit it that far?
Yeah. Oh, he's got some serious power. I mean, yeah. And I really do hope that you can see it even in the majors. He has like these stretches where, he looks like he can be an everyday player. So, we're all pulling for him though, because he was the mayor of Worcester, mayor of Polar Park while he was down here.
It sounds like that's extended to AAA too. Like not to AAA, to the majors also. Like people just seem to on the team. Like when you think about a good clubhouse guy, it's Franchi Cordero in a nutshell, who just happens to be supremely athletic on top of that. It might not be this year, but I do think he's going to have at least one of those years where he just puts it all together.
Yeah, he's still relatively young, and I think that's like what people forget. And like sometimes these things are so delicate. Sometimes it's just the right combination of factors, that works.
Oh yeah. No, player development is never linear, but it's more rare, I think, that it's linear than what it isn't. And we're seeing a lot of guys getting called up this year. Just looking at the rotation, Winkowski, you mentioned Siebold before. Bayo got to make his debut, and people totally are overreacting to 2 starts.
100%. I'm like not even looking at any of the Bayo stuff. I'm like, I can't even look at what people are saying about him, because he's too talented. Like I wish he had gone up there and dominated, but I think that's so unrealistic to expect of a kid, especially a kid who's been here for 2 months in AAA or whatever. But boy, you watch him pitch. I like the first his debut. It just felt different. It's so hard to explain, but I feel like we all just kind of looked at each other and were like, "Oh, okay, wow, cool."
He skyrocketed through the system. People forget. I think he started at high A last year. Like that is so fast to go from high A to the majors in basically like what, a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't. And like it's so rare. And, you know, I have like a lot of confidence in him. He's so like easygoing, like things don't get to him. But what was interesting is like we were kind of waiting for in AAA him to get into trouble, to really have like a difficult start, you know, to have traffic on the bases, to have to honestly to have to battle through without having his best stuff. And that just didn't really happen very often in AAA. And it seemed like maybe it happened a little bit in the majors, you know, once he gets up there. But like he still has things to learn and to go through. And I think like those developmental steps are important. But I think it was a good experience for him.
I mean,
You know?
sometimes you need that to like kind of realize what you're up against too, and also that it's attainable. I think in the case with Downs, I think with Bayo, I think we've seen it. I think Winkowski was really interesting coming up because he's kind of always profiled to me as being like a number 4, number 5 starter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they've used him as, and he's done exactly that since he got brought up. So I think it can be different with these high ceilings guys versus these more like bulldog type pitchers.
Totally. All through my life, I've always gravitated towards like the bulldog pitchers or the guys who maybe, you know, sometimes I think of like Siebold this way a little bit, who has to be crafty, you know, or who really has to hit his spots, or and when he does, when he paints, when he whatever, you know, he can be really dominant. I mean, fucking Bronson was an all-star one year, you know.
Oh yeah, right after he got to Cincinnati.
Yeah, 2006. Yep. And like, you know, he had some really good years there, and it's like I think it's so fun to watch those pitchers like when they're successful. I mean, obviously someone like Bayo is incredible, but Bayo also just has like such pure talent. It's just like, you know, it's just like this kid's just gonna harness it and make it work for him. But for some of the guys who, you know, the journeyman or whatever, I think it can be like really fun to, and not to say that Winkowski or Connor are either of, you know, either of those are older guys, but you know, they're the type of guys who I think to have like long careers like have to find that niche or whatever. And it's really cool to see like Winkowski kind of finding that spot and like running with it. You know, he maybe kind of leapfrogged a couple guys because he wasn't here that long last year. Made like a start or two, and but yeah, and he'll keep people laughing because that was on his mind. Oh, I love it. I love a good no filter.
So he's always been like that. That was how he was earlier in the year at AAA as well.
Pretty much, you know, it's all I've only like seen that when it extends to like him and his performance, you know what I mean? But like he will, I think Chad Tracy said like sometimes we gotta reel him back a little bit. Keep him from getting too hard on himself, which is, you know, it's something I can relate to. But he takes, you kind of love to see that too, though. You know, sometimes I think there's, you know, we're not supposed to show any emotions, or since everything is so like under a microscope that like people pick at every single thing that you say, it's kind of refreshing for someone to just go out there and be like, yeah, this place is nothing special or whatever. And it's just like, tell us what you really think. I love it.
I just wanted him to go to Tampa and be like, nicest stadium I've ever been to, best in the world.
God, right?
Great fans.
Yeah, great fans. Really felt the energy. Catwalk, not a problem at all. Really good. Really great.
So I've got one more question for you because we're reaching that hour mark. But there have been 2 lefties that have been somewhat recently called up to AAA, and I'm just curious what your take on how their performance has been. It's actually 3 if you count Brandon Walter, but he's been hurt for a bit, so I'm not gonna go on that one. But Chris Murphy, and then more recently Jake Room made his debut. And I'm just wondering, with Murphy, his numbers have been better. He was doing really well at AA, and they've been even better at AAA. What's been your take on him? Because I just remember I've only seen him pitch once, and it was his debut when he had a shutout going through 6, and they brought him in for the 7th, and he got hammered. But
Yeah,
what's
no,
that
was the
been
one
like
I watched
watching him?
too. Yeah, that's the one I watched too, and I was like, "Oh gosh, why do we bring him back out?" But yeah, no, it's what's amazing is think about like how many starters have gotten called up from the Woo Sox, and they just keep coming to replace them with guys who have just as much potential. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see what both of those guys can do in the second half of the season, but I mean, Murphy's really seemed to have taken the role and just like run with it in, these few starts so far. Um, man, Brandon Walter too. He's another one where I didn't think it was going to be like a long-term thing. I think it was like he slept on his neck weird. He had,
Yeah.
just something odd, and things just linger, but his numbers were crazy in double A. I love a guy who doesn't walk anybody.
That was I thought that it must have been a typo because I think he went like his first, it was like 0 to 60 or something like that with strikeouts. I mean, you just don't see that. And he has like a slider too, so that's something that that you think is going to be missing the zone.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's crazy, and I mean, I can't think of a much better like indicator for like at least having some success when you get up here than not walking guys. Like the biggest thing is like if I had a nickel for every time a leadoff walk came back to hurt somebody,
You would have a lot of money.
I would have a lot of money. I would. And I would have central air in this room. And oh gosh.
I feel that. I feel that times a million.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's going to be like a lot to watch in this next, couple months. I mean, gosh, we go all the way to like the end of September, so we got a lot of AAA baseball left. But yeah, Groom just came up for his first outing. He was good. He was really good. And, I think these are some guys who, again, with 2020, these were guys who were like kind of highly touted, especially Groom. And, there's just kind of like a lost season in there. And it's kind of just getting back on the trajectory and working their way towards, where they're supposed to be. So yeah, it's exciting. It's fun.
Yeah. So actually, I lied to. I do have two other questions for you before we end this. And the first is, of the first half of the season, what for you, Katie Morrison, was the biggest highlight for the first half of up until the All-Star break?
All right. Well, okay, that's not fair. I'm gonna give two because one was very, very much personal because Bronson was there, and I was very excited. And he's like the only player who like it's kind of like a weird divide. Like I've like weirdly covered a lot of my favorite players at this point, but I've never covered Bronson. I never interviewed him. I mean, I'd gone to his concerts like a crazy person, and I've heard the same Pearl Jam and like Goo Goo Dolls songs a million times.
His cover of "The Freshman" by Verve Piper.
Yes,
it's solid. Is rock solid. Right? He did a good cover of "Fuel." Shimmer.
Yup.
Dude's legitimately talented.
Speaking my language right now, gosh, got me into some good grunge 90s rock as a kid. But that was really cool, like getting to just like interview him, and he's one of those guys where people always talk about, like, it's funny, Joe McDonald was like, I think he might be one of my favorites too, because he's just like super down to earth. He just like when he's talking to you, it really feels like he's like talking to you. So that was cool. I think like my game highlight was probably what was that, the 4th of July, I think, when Ronaldo Hernandez hit like an 8th inning home run, and a go-ahead home run. It was a game winner, but he was just so excited. He jumped like 1.5 feet in the air, and he's maybe not the lightest guy on the team, or the fastest guy on the team, but I loved the emotion. It was so much fun.
He's been so red hot. He had a really not a good May, just an aggressively bad May. Similar, actually, to Pedro Castellanos in Portland.
Yeah,
and both of them have just been gangbusters ever since the calendar trip, which just goes to show, like, you really can't make much out of a short sample either way, because these guys, when you get hot, sometimes you just click and it goes for a while.
He's still producing. We're like waiting for it to like hit this plateau or downturn, but he's been hot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he's got 20 doubles. I think he hit his 9th home run of the year the other night. Like
Yep.
he's tearing it up, and he's a catcher. Good.
Yes.
I know the Sox prospect scouting report for him is one of my favorite because there's just like a note in defense saying that he's the guy who would benefit most in all of baseball from robot humps. And I just think that like that it's just such a funny thing with Fred. And now I watch for it, and it's accurate. It is accurate. He just like doesn't like to frame it or something, but
yeah,
he's got
that's
a great
funny.
arm. He's got a great arm.
He does. He does. Both catchers, they are in a really good spot with their catchers in the minors. Like that I feel like is the position they're almost like, besides pitchers, but like that is almost the position they're most stacked at right now, because I feel like either of those, especially Wong, I mean he's a good catcher. He's like a good catcher, not just a hitter. He's a good receiver. He's a good
he knows how to call a game. He's fast too, especially I mean they've been putting him at second base the last couple games just because blowouts. But I mean, when he came up, they were talking about him being like Blake Swihart right after that trade.
Yeah. No, I can see that they are kind of similar. I mean, his build for a catcher is so unique. I mean, he's one of the smaller guys on the team, but yeah, he can steal a base. He can hit a bomb too. Like, yeah, he's pretty well rounded. And I know like Evaldi was saying they've worked together like during the off season and stuff. And he was like, it was Sale who was saying that he's just like really aware of things that and you can't teach that, So
I think there's a good chance I'm 99% sure he's going to make the opening day roster for the 2023 season.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's going to be as the starter or the backup. I assume it would be as the backup, at least to start, and then maybe it's a timeshare. But he's done enough at this point that he's like, So here's my other question for you: what are you most looking forward to in the second half?
It's a good question. I am looking forward to Casas coming back. That's for sure. I mean, it was just really fun to watch him. Even just like watch him work kind of over the first couple months. Like he's a really interesting guy. He's he's kind of like almost has like a beach kid kind of vibe. He walks around barefoot. He has does like yoga. He has a very specific routine. But it was just kind of fun to like watch him work and watch him hit. I'm excited to see how Bayo responds. And, I think that almost maybe he's got a little feeling like he has a little something to prove now,
Get that chip on his shoulder.
A little bit, sometimes it's not a bad thing, especially when things have gone relatively easy for him, like pretty breezy so far. And I would really like to see some more of these relievers get a chance to get up there. I think that is obviously the most likely like place where you're drawing from. Like you're going to need relievers down the stretch. And I just think that there have been some guys here who have been like really impressing. And, sometimes those are the guys that don't get talked about as much, of course, especially this year, they have such a giant bullpen. I swear they're like 12 or 13 relievers in there, like every game. They carry so many.
And they keep bringing more of them up. Like I saw Jake Thompson's first game the other day, and he just mowed him. It's like 2 innings, he just mowed him down. It was like, okay, I guess here's another one. Sure, AJ Politi didn't need any competition. Sure,
Chase Shugart. Yeah, we all keep switching between those. The names like I'm pretty. I think one of our biggest name discrepancies is we have heard that German, his name is actually Herman, but he just gave up on correcting people. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Just call him Frankie. It's fine.
Frank from New York.
New York. I love that there are like 4 of these relievers that were just taken directly out of the Yankees between Ord and Whitlock and Herman and Keller.
Yeah.
Last year, Espinal last year was another Rule 5 out of the Yankee system.
Yeah. And I thought that there was Espy was one of their best starter. I mean, he was kind of almost like the Connor Siebold of last year, just like good every time out. And I really thought he was going to get some innings, but he didn't get too many. But
yeah,
they've had honestly, it's been really fun because there's been so much to talk about, and it's been such good teams both seasons, so no shortage of stuff to be excited about, like that's for sure.
Yeah, no, there's always a lot to talk about with the minors, which I think is it's just so much. The minors really are so much fun, and this is what I'm gonna end it on. Favorite between inning entertainment.
Oh, that's a good question. All right, well, I'm gonna give two. So as a photographer, my favorite is the t-shirt toss, because holy crap, I cannot believe how badly people want free t-shirts. I mean, they're not even nice. I mean, they're fine, but like they're just, but I have so many pictures of people losing their minds, like trying to get a t-shirt, and I'm gonna compile them on it all at some point. So that's always the most entertaining for me. But I think like the most fun to watch, I do love the pie in the sky one, like because I love when like the crowd will like boo some poor kid who like dropped a pop-up, or when they boo Woofster for like not being able to throw it or something like that. So I gotta say, maybe we need a little bit of work on the in-between innings entertainment. Like there's some things that just need like a little bit of tweaking, but hard to complain about anything at Polar, that's for sure.
I mean, I noticed they're not doing like the power outage thing anymore, where it's like where they'd have like like turning the light switch or something. Like I remember them doing that last year.
I haven't seen that in a while. Sometimes like they do have occasionally like the battle balls where they put their interns into like those big balls and then they bounce off each other, but they have to rush them off the field so quickly that we don't even get to really see the action. Come on, we gotta build up the drama, you gotta care. I think we have like 3 mascots now. We have Smiley, Woofster, and Roberto the Rocket.
Who's only there like once a month, unfortunately.
I missed the game he was introduced, and I haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, I was at that one. I did get to go to that one, I will say. It was pretty delightful seeing an anthropomorphic rocket firing things into the stands. It was pretty
sure that Roberto Ramos had like a really good game that game too.
He did a walk-off home run that game, actually. An opposite field walk-off 2-run bomb after they blew the 9th inning. It was pretty great.
That was the Roberto night. And it was the big Roberto night. But yeah, now he's back in Korea, which is crazy. Him and
Thomas Pannone, yeah,
which was, I was kind of surprised. I mean, like a Rhode Island kid, he was like, I think he was staying with his parents. Like his parents were at so many of the games, and then it's just like now he's going to Korea. But I kind of get it. I mean, you might as well do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, with the amount of talent there and everything, it just would have been tough for the guy to get an opportunity. But I mean, he was pretty consistent. Every game I saw him pitch, it was like 6 innings, 2 runs, not a lot of walks. Like he was fine.
Yeah. I think him and like Keller kind of end up in this place where they're like really, really valuable to the team because they'll do whatever is asked of them. But at the same time, that like makes their stats look kind of crazy and their numbers look kind of crazy because they're not really a reliever, they're not really a starter. They're just like this, like, it's the perils of doing everything the team needs you to do,
Yeah, Keller's He's just an interesting pitcher. I don't think his fastball goes above 90, but yes, so it's like watching a wiffle ball pitcher.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But anyway, on that note, thank you so much, Katie. This is again Katie Morrison of Mass Live, photographer, writer. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Follow me on Instagram, I guess. Photos by KMO. I post a lot of Woo Sox content. And on Twitter at KatieMo61 for all your Woo Sox news.
Yeah, she's got, I can tell you on the record here, she gets a lot of scoops. So it's a good one to follow if you want to be the first on all the AAA news. But thanks so much again for coming on, Katie. This was great. And, we'll be back in a couple of days. Brad's got some interviews lined up, so you're not going to be totally bored during the All-Star break. Till then.
All right, that sounds good. Enjoy your.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to follow us on Instagram Twitter and Facebook at Pesky Report. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.